everyone, Miss Spear here. Welcome back to today's Donkey Storytime and welcome back from your break. I hope you had a wonderful few days resting, relaxing, having some fun with your family. And now we're back at it again, ready to continue with our remote learning. Just a quick reminder that this week we won't have new choice boards since we have such a short week. So you're going to continue with your choice boards from the last week. You can either work on any choices you didn't get to, or you can continue on with any you were in the middle of too. But that's going to be this week, and then next week we'll roll out some new choices for you as well. For now, we are going to continue on with the very last chapter in Ralph S. Mouse. Are you ready? Are those ready? Ollie's ready? All right, let's jump on in. Now, if you remember, we left off with Ralph in that dreaded fishbowl yet again. The kids had decided that now that they had found Ralph again, even though he was really never lost, they have decided to put him into the fishbowl where he can be safe from any traps or poisons or any type of extermination they're trying at the school overnight. And then they'll be back together again the next morning. So we left off with Chapter 9, The Surprise. Let's find out what the surprise is. The next morning, Mr. Tanner reported to Miss Kay, and Miss Kay reported to her class that no mice had been caught in Mr. Costa's traps. Yay! Cheered Room 5. I told you so, said Ralph from the mitten thumb. Oh, you remember, he's inside the fishbowl, but at least they did give him a mitten for some privacy this time. So from the mitten, he's still not happy though. Miss Kay wrote the proper form of a business letter instead of a friendly letter on the blackboard. Because the class was not planning to write friendly letters to the Cucaracha Voice, the class set to work writing to the editor their business letters, explaining that the story that was published about the mouse exhibit was not exactly true. If someone had trouble spelling a word, that person asked Miss Kay about it. She then wrote the word on the blackboard in case someone else wanted to use it. Outrageous and ridiculous were the first words she wrote. She told Brad, "Yes, blockhead is one word, but can't you find a better way of expressing yourself?" Miss Kay promised personally to deliver the letters to the paper during lunch period. No matter how many people spoke to him that day, Ralph refused to come out of the mitten thumb, which fortunately already had an excellent people. He noticed Brad, who still had his arm in a sling, hand a note to Miss Kay, who handed it back to him with a nod and a big smile. He saw Ryan pass a note to Brad, and Brad pass a note back. Quite a busy bunch, thought Ralph. He was bored and much too worn, but he refused to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing him in that glass prison yet again. When the long, miserable day ended, Ralph found himself being pulled out of the mitten by Ryan. "Come on, fellow, you're going back to the inn," he said. "And face all my relatives without my motorcycle?" squeaked Ralph. "No, thank you." "Relax. You can't live at school forever," said Ryan through his teeth as he tried not to move his lips. "Trust me, everything's going to be all right. You'll see." Because Ryan kept his hand closed around him, Ralph had no choice. He had to trust Ryan unless he bit him instead. He decided against doing so because Miss Kay said that hurting people did not solve anything. Look at him learning at school. Ryan shoved Ralph into his coat pocket and closed the zipper all the way. Even so, Ralph was aware that something unusual was happening. Brad got on the school bus with Ryan after saying to the driver, "Here's my note from home." Ooh, a bus pass. The two boys sat together. "Have you got it?" asked Ryan. "Yep," answered Brad. "Right here, in my pocket." "Got what?" Ralph wondered. Maybe you were wondering too. "The remains of my motorcycle?" "I've always wanted to ride on a school bus," said Brad. "And I've always wanted to ride in a tow truck," said Ryan. "That's easy," said Brad. "My dad will give you a ride. He gets lots of calls up your way when the roads are icy, and he pulls a lot of cars out of the snowbanks. Business is good this time of the year." "I'll ask the cook if you can stay for dinner," said Ryan. "Wow, dinner in a hotel!" Brad was impressed. "We'll have to eat in the kitchen," Ryan explained. "And since the hotel's got a microwave oven, sometimes the plates are hot and the food isn't." "That's okay," said Brad. "My dad cooks mostly hamburgers and open cans of beans." Then, lest Ryan think him disloyal to his father, he added, "My dad makes good hamburgers, and on Sunday he cooks a steak. Sometimes, if he's really busy, I get my own supper. Then I have hot dogs." Ooh, Some of our friends love hot dogs too. You mean you stay alone sometimes? Asked Ryan. I have Archie with me, said Brad. I wish I got to stay alone with a dog, said Ryan. I get tired of hearing the waitress tell the cook that the guests are complaining because the food isn't hot enough. Ralph resented being imprisoned by a zipper, and the conversation was boring because it wasn't about him. He thought about biting his way out, but he did not like the taste of the nylon jacket. Besides, a school bus was not a very good place to hide. When the two boys got off the bus, Ralph heard their feet crunch along through the snow. The inn was at a higher altitude, higher up than the town of Cucaracha, and the snow lasted longer there. Then he heard their feet stamp up the steps, scratch on the doormat, and enter the lobby. The old clock was still managing its familiar slow tick-tock, tick-tock. To Ralph, it sounded like a good old friend. Hello there, boys, said Ralph's protector, Matt. Ryan, I'm glad to see you have a friend. So Matt had not lost his job after all. Then, as Ralph had hoped, the little mice must have moved upstairs, where they would be unable to taunt him about losing his motorcycle. Feeling more cheerful now, Ralph began to jump around in the slippery pocket. Let me out, he demanded. Ryan unzipped his pocket and lifted Ralph out, but held on to him still. How good the lobby looked. A fire still burned in the old stone fireplace, and the grandfather clock and the television set right where they had always been. One thing was different, though. The lobby was neater than Ralph remembered it. The desk clerk ignored the boys, who did not stop to remove their jackets before they knelt in front of the clock. Do you think it will fit? Ryan asked Brad. We'll see in a second. Brad pulled something out of his pocket. Wow! A Laser XL7, just like you said. What might that be? Will it fit underneath? And something they haven't filled Ralph in on just yet. A Laser XL7, breathed Ryan as Brad set a miniature sports car on the floor and pushed it carefully through the highest part of the arch at the bottom of the clock. The car was low enough, and if maneuvered by a skillful driver, he could slip right through. See that, Ralph? Ralph had seen all right. The sleek, mouse-sized car with wire-spoked wheels and knockoff hubcaps was painted silvery gray, the right color for whizzing unnoticed through the shadows. The broad, thick tires would stand up to the rough surface of carpets and make a wide splash through puddles. The doors did not open, but the windows were big enough for a nimble mouse to climb right on through, and, after all, racing car drivers did not open their doors. They went right through the windows, too. Ralph was squeakless at the sight of such a beautiful sports car. Why, with a car like that, he would no longer have to hang on to his tail to keep it from getting tangled in the spokes. He could just hop on in and take off. Come on, let's see you drive it. Ryan set Ralph down beside the little Laser XL7. Could he drive it? He'd show them. Ralph slipped through the windows into the bucket seat, made sure his tail was safely inside, grasped the wheel, took a deep breath, and went. Motorcycle noise, please. But the car did not move. Some noisy skiers came in from outside but paid no attention to the kneeling boys as they crossed the lobby. The boys crouched behind the couch until they had gone. Silly, said Ryan. That's your motorcycle noise. You've got to make a sports car noise to make a sports car move. Oh, how silly of me, admitted Ralph, who had been too excited to think straight. He took another deep breath and made his voice as low as a squeaky mouse could go. And we need a car noise this time, please. Could you give me a vroom, vroom? The laser began to roll across the floor. Ralph was driving. He was actually driving this beautiful sports car. He drove it straight into the leg of a couch, where it stopped. Ralph vroomed again. The car did not budge. Matt, who had joined the boys to watch, asked, "How's the little fellow going to back up?" Silence. No one had thought of this problem. Ryan's mother stepped out of the elevator. "Hello, Ryan," she said with a smile. "Is this your new friend?" "Yes, this is Brad," answered Ryan, with his hand on the Laser XL7 so his mother couldn't see Ralph inside. "Hi." Brad was unexpectedly shy. I'm glad you could come home with Ryan, said Mrs. Bramble. What are you boys doing? Oh, just playing with a little car, said Ryan. Play quietly, said Mrs. Bramble. And if the manager appears, you'd better go back to our cottage, or perhaps you could show Brad around. He might like to see the kitchen. Without advice, she went off to make sure the maids had cleaned the ground floor bedrooms properly. Brad sat back on his heels. Mom sure is nice, he said. Yes, agreed Ryan, his thoughts on Ralph's problems. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Car noise, please. Ralph made a noise like a racing motor, but the car did not move. What we need is your dad's tow truck, remarked Ryan. Ralph found the boys' laughter most unhelpful. I know, said Brad. If going vroom makes the car go forward, maybe saying vroom backwards would make it back up? Ooh, that's quite the challenge. Not that noise. Vroom backwards. So it would start with M this time, then. Morv. Could you give me your backup car noise, please? Morv. Ryan tried the sound. It's hard to say, but if it works, that's okay. Backing a car is slower than going forward. Try it, Ralph. Backwards car noise, please. Morv. The car inched away from the leg of the couch. Again, please. Morv. The car was free. Now, forward car noise, please. Vroom. Ralph drove off in a wide circle and returned to his friends. Do I get to keep it? He asked. It's all yours, said Brad, to make up for your broken motorcycle. Don't you need it? Asked Ralph, unable to believe that anyone would give away such a special car. Not anymore, Brad told him. Not since I have a BMX. Ralph was speechless with joy. He ran his paw lovingly over the dashboard of his very own car. Wait till your relatives see you riding around in a Laser XL7, remarked Matt. Ralph leaned out the driver's window. What do you mean? He asked. I thought they all moved back upstairs. Most of them did, said Matt, but a few of your outdoor relatives still hang around, hoping you'll bring your motorcycle back. Just my luck, thought Ralph. That rowdy bunch. There was a sound of someone stamping snow off boots at the entrance of the inn. Matt hastily returned to his chair by the front door while Ralph quickly and skillfully drove his car under the clock. The boots turned out to belong not to a guest, but to a man delivering the Cucaracha Voice newspaper. He shoved the papers into a rack and hurried out the door. Matt removed a copy of the newspaper, put on his glasses, and read the headlines. Then, something at the bottom of the front page caught his eye. Say, you boys don't know a Miss Heidi Kuchenbacker down at Sneed, do you? He asked. Yeah, she's our teacher. The two boys rushed over to Matt to see what the paper said about Miss K. Ralph climbed out of his car. He found that bits of his old nest still remained under the clock. With a shred of Kleenex, he began with loving care to polish away the boy's fingerprints. As he polished, he listened while Matt read aloud from the Voice newspaper. Retraction, it says here above the picture, said Matt. What's retraction? Asked Brad. That means something that they take back that they said, explained Matt. They should, said Brad. Hey, look, said Ryan. There's the picture of our class. What else does it say? Matt read. The editors of the Cucaracha Voice regret a misleading story published in Saturday's edition concerning Miss Heidi Kuchenbacker's class at Irwin J. Sneed Elementary School. Ralph stopped polishing. Maybe the paper would say something about him. That is his favorite subject, isn't it? Matt continued. After thorough investigation, Superintendent Clyde R. Crossman has cleared Sneed of any charges of mouse infestation. Miss Kuchenbacker's pupils have informed the editor that the mouse exhibited in their classroom was not captured as reported, but instead was a pet of Ryan Bramble, a member of the class. Ralph was insulted. He was no one's pet. Not Ryan's, not anyone's. Hey, Ryan, you got your name in the paper. Brad was excited for his friend. Wait, there's more, said Matt. Miss Kuchenbacker reports that she and her class learned much from having a mouse in the classroom. How about that, said Ralph. I guess I taught them a thing or two. Matt read on. The editors regret any embarrassment caused to Room 5 by the misleading article about their activities. Well, that's better, said Brad. Sounds as if maybe the editor's having a little fun, remarked Matt. No, he isn't. Ryan was serious. We really did write to the paper, said Brad. And the superintendent really did investigate mice at our school. Well, sort of. I guess we took care of that editor, said Ryan. Come on, Brad. Let's go see if the cook will give us something to eat. Ralph watched the boys leave before he carefully polished every single millimeter, even smaller than a centimeter, of his beautiful new car. Then he pushed his nest together for a nap while waiting for night to come. His day had been exciting, exhausting, and satisfying. Because of him, two boys had become friends. Ralph felt that he had done a good deed in a troubled world. Ralph awoke much later when the clock began to grind and groan and slowly, as if in pain, strike 11, the safe hour for mice to appear. Ralph was enjoying a good stretch when he saw 5 of his relatives peering back at him. He's back, said one. And he's got a car, said another. A sports car, said the third. Instantly, there was a clamor and confusion. Give me a ride! Me first! Stop shoving! I should be the first because I'm the oldest. Hey, get off my foot! Instead of getting excited and angry, Ralph stood calmly beside the car and looked at his relatives without speaking. Wonder where he learned that trick. Gradually, the mice grew quiet. That's better, said Ralph. I can't hear anyone if you all speak at once. The mice were silent, listening the way room 5 had grown quiet and listened to Miss Kay. Look, fellows, said Ralph. If you all get in line, you can take turns. That way you each can have a ride. Good idea, murmured the mice, who had never before thought of such a thing. Ralph was pleased with himself for putting his education to use. He climbed into his car and drove it out from under the clock. My oldest cousin first, he directed. His relative climbed into the passenger seat and pulled his tail in after him. That's the way, said Ralph with approval. Now, take a deep breath and we'll both go. Car noise, please. Vroom. Together, the cousins roomed around the lobby, down the long hall, and back faster than Ralph could have ever driven alone. Next, Ralph said, when he had returned with his passenger. And by the way, he said to his relatives, as his next cousin in line climbed into the car, in school, human beings learn things by grades. So older human children learn harder things than younger human children. The mice caught on at once. Riding in a sports car is for older mice, one cousin said. It's too dangerous for little mice. We won't even tell our little relatives about it, said another. We can't have them messing up the lobby, said a third. We'll keep it a secret, said the fourth. Good thinking, complimented Ralph. As he and his cousins sped down the hall, Ralph was happy. He felt proud because he had helped Miss Kay educate her class. But he was humble enough to admit that he had learned from the children too, even though he never did find out where Miss Heidi Kuchenbacker kept her toothpaste. He guessed it really didn't matter. And that brings us to the end of the chapter. Since this is also the last book in the series, they give us one last page that's called the epilogue. And the epilogue gives you a little information about what the author believes would have happened after the series is finished. So I'll read that to you too. Epilogue. When Brad's father came to the Mountain View Inn in his tow truck to take Brad home, he met Ryan's mother. 6 months later, they were married, and Ryan and Brad became brothers. They all lived in a house in Cucaracha, California. Ryan was pleased to have a father, and Brad was pleased to have a mother. Most of the time, the boys were glad to be brothers. And Ralph, the boys decided that the dog Arfie might take an interest in a mouse for the wrong reason, if you know what I mean. Ralph remained behind at the inn where he rides around every night in his sports car, generously giving rides to his relatives and enjoying their company now that they have benefited from his education. He is strict about one thing, however. Ralph is the only mouse who sits in the driver's seat of the Laser XL7. And that is the end of our story. A cheers for Ralph. Wonderful. Now, that means tomorrow you can expect in our Google Classroom, I will be popping up a form where you can vote on which book you'd like to read next. I'm going to be bringing back a few books that I know friends had wanted to consider this next time around. And then I'll also offer up a few other suggestions for you to choose from too. And we'll go with whichever one has the most votes for our next book. And I'll also plan to give you a little surprise story tomorrow too. So don't forget to check the Google Classroom, check back in for your voting and for a special story too. And for now, I'll leave you with that. Keep up the great work in our classroom and don't forget to look for moments where you can show caring and kindness to others. Keep up the great work, everyone.